My name is Jordan Tate. I am currently an assistant professor of art/photography at the University of Cincinnati. My work generally addresses, broadly speaking, how photography functions, both within our perception and with our construction of reality. I sort of like to approach photography as a metaphor or microcosm for how we perceive and understand the world, broadly speaking. So the photograph isn't necessarily an object, it's not necessarily a representation. I like to view the photograph as an idea, something that's malleable, but something that governs our broad understandings of the world rather than our experiences immediately with objects or images. Subjectivity is what makes sight valuable, and it's objectivity that makes it communicable. And I think that's sort of true of a lot of things. So thinking about this blackness as the object that allows us to discuss emptiness, ironically, is a material that is full. It's brimming with light and energy and all of the things that it's keeping. I viewed this sort of black hole as something that we could throw our experiences into. So I think much like I want my photographic work to lift the veil on what it means to exist in front of a photograph and experience photography, I want the SUPERBLACK to sort of be the object against which we can throw our perceptions of reality. The Bust and Glove piece, New Work 170, is actually a chance for me to illuminate the role of the museum, because the satyr that's photographed, or the sculpture that's photographed, is an unknown object by an unknown sculptor. So the authority, the weight, the preciousness of this object comes from its history and its possession in the museum. And I think the things that govern our context in this way are really, really fascinating. And that's thinking about the container of the image, the container of the museum, and how we essentially, how we construct our understanding of the objects and experiences that we have is really reliant on how they're experienced. So SUPERBLACK is another example of that, because it recontextualizes the pedestal, but still has the photographic 60 inches to center. So it's a 54-inch column with a 0.7-inch cast acrylic blocks on the four corners, and then the SUPERBLACK object, which is just under 12 inches, puts the center of that black hole at the traditional 60-inch museum center. Once I really hit upon this notion of objectivity and subjectivity with perception, I started looking into how else we objectify perception, thinking about color charts and gamuts, and how we quantify sight. So thinking about that has led me to an interest in machine vision, where we offload the sort of problem of perception to cameras, devices, and other quantifiable means. The Mars rover picture has some really interesting elements there, such as the distance scale and the color chart, but I'm also thinking about robotic cars and factories and things where they use lens-based imagery and somehow, and I'm just getting into this as a really interesting notion, somehow parse that into data that is then analyzed and acted upon without ever being quote-unquote seen by a person. One of the pieces in the exhibition, I think, situates itself really nicely in the way I think about ideas of duality. It's New Work 185, that is the polarized caps and the ultra-deep field. And I like this because it situates us as the viewer just outside of the orbit of Earth looking in. So it's really introspective in the sense that we're exploring our own space, but it also situates us looking out from a similar, ostensibly similar or the same device, from another satellite or telescope looking at the stars. One of the things that came out of the book was the interview in which Lisa Kersner asked me questions about this divide of poet-scientist or artist-scientist. I think in order for someone to be richly and truly informed, we have to be informed by both scientific notions and romantic notions.